In a world of waiver wires and trades, where every Sunday is a battle, one person's decisions can mean the difference between glory and crushing defeat. This is Meet the GM.
Hi there, and welcome to episode number 7 or 8. I can't remember. I'm losing track how many it is. And today we have Murf. How's it going, Murf?
Yeah, good, mate. Good to be here. Good to definitely chat a little bit of ball. It's been a while since I've done one of these. We're on a bit of a hiatus / break for the first time in like 9 or 10 years of podding. So yeah, not done too many pods lately. So yeah, I'm looking forward to jumping in this one. Just getting ready for the NFL draft in a couple of weeks.
I know, I'm looking forward to it. At least it's not a late one for me, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
So if you let everybody know, whereabouts are you actually from?
So I live in a town called Irthlingborough, which nobody has ever heard of. For those who are fans of 90s football, soccer, Rushden and Diamonds play at the state, or used to play at the stadium. It's literally just down the road. It was the merging of two teams. Why they're called Rushden and Diamonds? They were Rushden Football Club and Irthlingborough Diamonds. And basically, the owner of Dr. Martin's bought both football clubs and merged them into one. And then they played at Neem Park, which is about a 5-minute walk, sort of that way. So that's where I am. It's near Rushden, near Wellingborough. It's in Northamptonshire. And if you don't know where that is, then go get an atlas or Google wherever it is, like south of the middle of England, I guess.
Cool. I do remember Rushden and Diamonds, but I didn't think that was like where they were, so it's quite cool. So.
Yeah, that's exactly where it is. So yeah, and the owner, the reason they did so well was the owner was from the family that founded Dr. Martin's. Dr. Martin's was sort of big around. So again, Northampton, if you think cobblers, you think shoes. It's the lineage of where we are. Lots of like manufacturing, milling, it's big bakery, Whitworth's Bakery, goods of their factories in my town, stuff like that. All
right, cool. That's very smart. So obviously, I know you're on the time limit, so we'll go on to what's your Orkney team name?
So it's the Irthlingborough Buccaneers, which obviously Irthlingborough being where I live, and the Buccaneers being my favourite team and have been for a long time, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So merging the two together kind of just sort of made some sense.
Oh, definitely. Like obviously, I think anybody that knows you like the Buccaneers. And there's probably a few
about
here.
7 of us in the UK, I think, who like the Bucs. Maybe there's more. I don't know. But
well, there's one boy in Orkney. He doesn't follow it anymore, but he's a Bucs fan. Yeah, his kids came along and he got interested with more fishing with the kids and football. But yeah, I remember him being a Bucs fan. That was years ago. But so, how long have you followed the NFL? You'll have been a wee while.
This will be my 26th sort of active season as a fan. I was probably aware of the NFL like most people in the 90s with films. The Miami Dolphins were big marketing here. I remember I must have been probably about 7 or 8. I remember getting a Miami Dolphins ring binder. So there was always that sort of awareness of what it is. And, games on Channel 4 and stuff, I always kind of watched it, but I wouldn't have said I was like a fan until I moved to Florida when I was 14 in the year 2000. So people now can start working out how old I am. And so, yeah, really, I just, that was when I became a big fan, was in the year 2000, being in Orlando, being in American high school. And people are into it, and I was on the team and stuff. So it just kind of grew really, really quickly from there.
Oh, definitely. It's a good way to get into it and know more about it. Obviously, being there, you'll learn more by playing it as well. So
100%, yeah.
Well, that sounds like my next 2 questions, so that's quite easy. So, obviously, because you've been a fan for a while, so who's your favourite player from the past as a Buccaneer?
It's impossible to name one. So I'll get away with naming 5. I think is probably it, and they all were in the same team, so that kind of helps a little bit. So for me, Derrick Brooks, Warren Sapp, John Lynch were huge in that sort of 2000 Buccaneers team. Well, 4 out of 5 were on the same team as one that wasn't. But those were unbelievable players. And then the quarterback that won the Super Bowl, Brad Johnston, I'm waiting to get his jersey back, and that's going to go on the wall behind me. I've got Dexter Jackson, who was the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 37, which I attended. And so, Brad Johnson threw several touchdowns in that game. I had the pleasure of actually having him on a podcast and talking to him, and he's just one of the nicest blokes. In fact, just up here is a signed football that he sent me after that show, which was just unbelievably kind of him. So what a bloke! And he played in London. He played for the London Monarchs when they had a team here as part of NFL Europe. And then the other one's Mike Evans. So it's obviously devastating that he has left this year, but the unbelievable legacy that he has left and the years of getting to watch him play has been absolutely phenomenal. So, it's not quite sunk in that him and Levante David aren't going to be on the team next year, but you get the opportunity to watch a generational Hall of Famer play for your team and who really sets the standard at the position. It's an unbelievably great thing. So yeah, I'm blessed to have seen him play live multiple times. But yeah, it's just sad that he's gone.
I know he'll always be a Buck. Again, he's gone, but it's not going to be for a year or two before he retires. But he's just if there's not anybody that knows the Bucks now, he is the Bucks.
Yeah, him and Levante David are the two that kind of personify the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and so to have them both gone in the same year is a really strange feeling, really. And I don't think it's probably going to be real until preseason or even the first game of the season that those guys aren't on the team. We haven't seen them in their new uniform. Well, obviously Levante David's retired, but we haven't seen Mike Evans in a 49ers jersey yet. And I think when we see that when that hits, it's going to be a horrible feeling. But yeah, I mean, he's got to do right by him, and he's been an incredible servant to us in Tampa.
Yeah, it's not like some players that leave and you go, oh God, I don't want to ever like them again. But he was
exactly that.
He's just he's amazing. So obviously, because he's not on your team anymore. So who's your favourite player on your team now?
On the Bucs now, I mean, I've always loved Chris Godwin. I've got a soft spot for him. Again, it's really hard to nail one. I'm a big Vita fan. I think what he does is truly unbelievable. He really is sort of the best nose tackle, and the character personified in what he does is truly exceptional. Bucky Irving is a really fun watch. Baker Mayfield, of course, is a leader. But I love guys like Antoine Winfield Jr. play hard on the defense as well. Like an unbelievable player. Yaya Diaby's kind of similar. So again, it's really hard to kind of pick one. If I had to stick my neck out and go one, it would probably be Godwin, just from the years. Again, someone I've met, someone I've got to talk to personally, and there's a lot of personal connections and experiences with what he's achieved as a former All-Pro as well. So, yeah, I'd probably say Chris Godwin, but it would be really hard to choose between absolutely everybody.
Yeah, it's unlike the Giants, it's harder to pick so many good players in the team. But yeah, they still have a strong team, and obviously what happened last year was a bit of a sucker the way they started. But,
Baker Mayfield played hurt, so at the end of the day, he wasn't fit, and there wasn't really anyone to cover, and everyone got hurt, and it just was a snowballing effect that once you lose a few games in a row, then the rot kind of sets in, and there wasn't that cultural change to fix and to turn it around. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year, because we've got a head coach that's very much on the hot seat, and he's going to very much have to change the tide of the thinking, because he's probably lost a considerable amount of the fan base. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them this year.
Well, I thought they've got a good chance of winning, even without Evans. David, they've got like Booker, who started off hot, then disappeared, but he got injured as well, and was never the same when he came back.
Yeah, Baker played the rest of the year, and missed some time, and so he really struggled. Really, the question marks are the Bucs are on their 5th offensive coordinator in 5 years.
That doesn't help.
So Zach Robinson is now the man at the helm, who has experience, which is a bit more than who was the OC last year. the question marks will really be around Todd Bowles and how much control he gives to Zach and how that team gets on. And they've made some decent moves in free agency. I think they've made some questionable moves as well. There isn't a lot of cap room. So they're going to have to draft well, which is something Jason Light has done for many, many years, to fill some gaps. And they're going to have to get smart, and they're going to have to play hard. But they're in a capable division of winning it. And, it's not a great division, luckily. And that division hasn't really replenished with a lot of great talent, luckily. So there is an opportunity for them to win a division title yet again. They should have won it last year. It was in the bag after half a season, but they let it slip. But really, it's going to be down to Todd Bowles, because if he doesn't deliver that as a minimum, he will be gone. Yeah. He will be gone at the end of next season. He won't get away with not winning another divisional title, especially with the way that the division is. And, a lot of the fan base blame him for the reason why Mike Evans has left, and believe that people are not sold on the plan of what Todd Bowles brings to the party. It's not a guy who has, he's tasted success as a DC. He had 5 pretty meh years at the Jets, and then it's the Jets. He did deliver 3 divisional titles in a row before last year, but very few playoff wins with a team that were more than capable of winning playoff games. Mm-hmm. And it's strange because last year, the first half of the year, they dug deep. They won a lot of one-score games, and they showed that tenacity and fight to be a really good team. I think they ended up number 1 in the power rankings after 6 or 7 weeks, and then completely tanked. And so how do you recover from that? And that will be the Todd Bowles story. He'll either recover from that, this team will go on and win a playoff game and show that he's the man going forward, or they won't, and he will be gone and we'll be on to somebody new.
Well, that's it. You can only get so many chances, and like you say, after the good start and falling apart, injuries aside, kind of 49ers, they still got through to the playoffs, and other teams get injuries. You've got to adapt, and he obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think he lost. I can't even do the maths, I think, but it was like 8 of his last 10 games. Yeah. He's a shocking run.
It was pretty dire to watch it later on, because but they still have a good team. So, and like you say, it is probably the weakest division. Yeah, obviously the one that the Patriots are not always the best, but they did do better last year. And you got the Bills,
well,
but
you
this is probably
got the Bills in there. I would say it's between the South, the two Souths, the AFC and the NFC South are easily the 2 worst divisions in football. You've got the Colts and the Texans, and then the Titans and the Jags. But again, it's not terrible, but there isn't a really strong winning team out there. You'd probably say that was stronger than Carolina, Falcons, Bucs, and Panthers. So you'd probably say those are the two divisions you would look at and say are arguably the weakest, but also competitive, because all those teams could potentially win the division if they go on a good run.
Well, obviously you've got one of the best running backs in your division too, but the rest of the team's just bad.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So, they've got quarterback issues, and we've just taken their offensive coordinator, so it'll be interesting to see how they rebound with that. But they've got a good coach, and they'll have the ability to build from that. It depends what they do in the draft. But again, it's interesting that bad franchises make bad decisions over and over again, where they take these luxury picks of high running backs early or high players early. The Raiders did it last year with Ashton, Jeanty. Like, the arrogance to think that you're a running back away from being a good team is just shocking. And then you're really just going to waste the 4 years that guy has in the NFL. You guys did it with Barkley. I hate to say it. Great player, obviously, but was that really the player that was going to kickstart the Giants' revival compared to who you could have taken in that draft? Probably not. These teams who take players and go with best player available, in some logic that makes sense. In some logic it just doesn't. I always a believer, if you're a team that's really struggling, that you haven't put together winning seasons back to back, and you're kind of picking top 10 continuously for a few years, build the trenches, build the offensive line, build the defensive line, build those players that have got real longevity, and build a really good, solid unit. Then you start to build out some skill players in there. And I appreciate you've got to take a skill player. You've got to sell the seats ultimately, like taking a Malik Neighbours. But at least with a Malik Neighbours, he's someone who can play 10 years plus to a high standard. So as long as you sell him the dream of, hey, we're in a rebuild, we're going to build the trenches, get a few pieces here, but you're going to be the face of the franchise in New York, you could sell that dream for 5 years, and then you hope by then you're a good team.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then he goes to the open market, and then he goes and does something with somebody else. So you kind of have to be really careful with when you draft these stars. With running backs, by the time they finish their first contract, they're almost done in the NFL. So, drafting, and this year we're going to see it, that Jeremiah Love's probably going to go in the top 5 of the NFL draft.
As long as it's not to the Giants.
Well, whoever he goes to in the top 5 of the NFL draft, you'd have to say it's a bit of a wasted pick unless someone has traded up and they're a good team and they are a running back and a couple of pieces away. It's the same with taking a quarterback. The logic of taking a quarterback at 1, like the Raiders are going to do here with Mendoza. You sit here and you think, okay, well, you take a quarterback at 1, great, he's the franchise. But how many times has the number 1 quarterback gone in and struggled because the rest of the team's bad? And what happens is that team never really gets going. They change head coach after a year or 2, and then you end up sort of with a clash of styles between what the quarterback was brought in to do, what the new offensive scheme is. We've seen this in Chicago over and over again, where they get a head coach on the hot seat. That head coach on hot seat drafts a quarterback. That quarterback doesn't do enough to save that head coach's job. They clean house, take the GM, or just take the head coach out, bring a new head coach in. That new head coaching philosophy and his style of play doesn't match the number 1 pick of the draft. They don't really kick on. That quarterback gets cast aside. They then have to draft another quarterback. But by that point, that head coach is on the hot seat. Like, it's continual decisions of making bad decisions in an organization over and over again. And so it's really important that teams overlook the flashy players sometimes when they're just in a position of they're bad. And at least what the Raiders have done is sign Kirk Cousins, so you don't have that pressure to start Mendoza right away, and you've got that ability to pivot and change. But the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl is with a quarterback on a rookie contract, because of the amount of money you're not paying him and the amount you can pay to the stars around the team. So you look at teams like the Seattle Seahawks, where Russell Wilson won it. They were at such a significant advantage because the fact Russell Wilson was on a rookie contract. They could pay all those studs on the defense, and they could pay talent across the team, because the quarterback position was netting 15, 20, well, at that point, maybe 10, 12 million a year. And so as a result, it made it really, really fortunate. And that's the cheat code. If you find, and that's why guys like Tom Brady kept winning, because he took under market contracts so that the rest of the team would get paid. And so if you're going to take a Mendoza, you basically have to win a Super Bowl in those first 5 years, because then otherwise what you do is you do what the Jacksonville Jaguars have done, and they pay Trevor Lawrence, and you do what Miami did, and they pay Tua, and then they haven't improved enough. And then what happened is the quarterback's taking all the money. They're talent poor. The Jags are on an upward trajectory, so they've kind of half figured it out, but Miami didn't. And now we're in a position where Tua's the most expensive player to ever be released in terms of dead money. So, it's you've got to be careful when you make those decisions, and how you structure the team going forward. So that's going to be really fascinating to see how they deal with those challenges this year, and in future years. But yeah, for me, I always would trade down from that pick. I'd go and get myself the depth pieces and just get better, and then take the rookie.
I remember the reaction when Penix got drafted after they just signed Cousins, and everyone was like, "What are you doing?" They could have got so many better players that they needed.
I really like Penix though. Like I half liked it in a weird way. I half liked it because as a GM, you're thinking about, I've got the guy for now and I've got the guy for the future. But again, the hubris to think that you were a quarterback away from winning from winning a lot was naive, and that defense was historically bad. And yeah, that's the other half of the coin of the problem is that how many good talent evaluators are there in the NFL? I don't think there are 32. I don't think all 32 teams evaluate talent brilliantly. I think it's got better, but when I say that, it's things like Shedeur Sanders last year. I went on a podcast that talked about Shedeur Sanders being a 4th round pick in March, about how you can't draft him higher than 4th, higher than the 4th round. It wasn't a skill set and it wasn't a talent deficiency. It was a scheme fit. He's very limited in what he can do in the NFL. He fits 4 schemes. So it's only those 4 teams that could take him realistically and do something with him to be successful. But all those teams had quarterbacks and franchise quarterbacks they're paying a lot of money to. So what's he going to do? He's going to be a backup. And then Cleveland thought, well, we'll take a flyer. And at that point, it's like, well, punt a chance. It works out. It doesn't work out. It's not cost you anything. That's a different conversation to taking him 2 overall. Yeah. And I think that's the fascinating point, that when people look at draft night, they think about taking best player available. And actually, it's not about best player available. It's about scheme fit, and it's about building for the next 3 to 5 years. And if you're on a GM and a head coach that don't have that luxury, then yeah, you probably have to take best player available. But that best player available pick could hurt the franchise. Like, I look at the Ashton Jeanty pick. The guy's never going to reach his potential in the NFL to what he could have been.
Yeah, not at the Raiders,
because of where he's landed. Saquon Barkley, had a rookie of the year performance. Luckily he ended up going to the Eagles. He lasted a bit longer. He got his ring and he's made an impact. But not everyone does, and that's half the challenge. So it's interesting to see the dynamics. That's what I love about the NFL draft is the psychology of it all and the kingsmanship of it all.
Well, you could also say the same for Matthew Stafford, who went the one picking up to go to the Rams to get the ring.
Yeah, I mean, probably
it took a long time to get there, but it's still.
Yeah, again, the Detroit Lions took him as someone, and in some way they're justified because they take a guy who's won an NFL MVP. Where they probably made the mistake was keeping him too long. In the sense of they did get a phenomenal deal when they traded him, but they probably could have got a king's ransom and they traded him 3 or 4 years sooner. When they were in a real rut, they could have actually got the picks to spend themselves out of oblivion. For so long, they had such an amazing quarterback and such a poor team. And you have to sit there and think, well, I've got this asset that hasn't depreciated. If anything, has appreciated in value. At some point, the GM's got to be bold and has got to cash that chip in. Every player should be traded for a ransom. You look at, and those trades could work out quite well. You look at Russell Wilson when he got traded for 3 first-round picks to Denver. Seattle ended up building a Super Bowl winning roster within 4 or 5 years of that trade. Not even that. 3 years after making that trade, they won a Super Bowl, and it wasn't just the picks; it was smart management. But they had an asset they knew they could get rid of, and they knew that they could build a team within 3 or 4 years of competition, and they ended up winning it all. Now, you probably wouldn't have dreamed it up that it would have been Sam Darnold, but they believed enough in the rest of the organization and the bodies that they had that if they kept adding good pieces, a good quarterback can come along and win with this team, and that's exactly what happened. So it shows you that good GMs and good teams make good trades at good times. And everyone lauds about what the Eagles do with the trading and Chris Ballard and his way of navigating draft picks. But I look at teams like the Seahawks as a standard that they whenever they make a trade, they don't ever really end up on the bad side of a trade. They traded Jamal Adams to the Jets for 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, that was
and he never looked anywhere near that. You think about this, they traded 2 players for 6 first-round picks. It's absolutely phenomenal bit of business that has built their team and set them up for success. So they're the parts of it I look at and think those good teams make those good trades at the right times. And you've got teams that, I think Harry Roseman at Philadelphia is a pretty good GM. He does make good trades, but he also doesn't draft particularly well. We think of the Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson situation of the 2020 NFL draft. So it's interesting. Again, that's why I love the draft. It gives every fan the opportunity to be a critic and every fan to have hope and dreams, like when the fixture list comes out of this player is going to change our franchise generationally for years.
Yeah,
It very rarely works like that, but it's like buying a lottery ticket and getting a pound's worth of dreams, right? It's fun to have for a while.
Definitely. Yeah, but like it is a lottery because obviously they can look great, but they might be different when they get to the NFL. So,
Yeah,
because it's a lot faster, a lot bigger, and yeah.
And I think the thing that people don't understand is that the scheme is incredibly underrated in terms of the way that an offense or a defense is schemed. Having a player that fits that scheme is incredibly important. So you've got two types of player: a player who's going to fit that naturally, or a player who's got the talent to mold into that. The third kind is the one that doesn't. When you get players who don't fit the style of play, and don't fit that mold, and don't fit that, it's really easy to, let's use a football terminology, to say that Arsenal Football Club would be a better football team with Erling Haaland up front, right? A generic fan will say, well, he scores 30, 40 goals a season. Arsenal can't score goals. Put Erling Haaland in that team. They'll be a better team because he'll score goals. And actually, fundamentally, it's because Arsenal don't pass the ball to the forward is why the forward doesn't score that many goals. They're not set up to play with that number 9. It's the same in the NFL. You get a player who doesn't fit the scheme, and we've seen this so many times at quarterback, where the pick is not a success. It's not because the player's not a good player, and it's not because the player couldn't have been a success in the NFL. It's they've gone to the wrong team because they've not been picked into a scheme that is set up for them to succeed, and it wasn't changed. It was expected that the player would change into the scheme, and actually that's not a great recipe for success. And so you have to find those players that fit your scheme and fit the way that you want to play. Now, again, if you're a hot seat coach, that's obviously trickier, and at the same point you have to kind of gamble. But if you're knowing you're going to have a job for 2, 3, 4 years, you have to think about the ones and growing organically over time. And that's what Dan Campbell at the Lions did really well. He drafted guys that fit in with his style of play, the way that they want to play football, and it's why their fortunes have reversed. So historically, because they found the character and the types of players that fit in with what they want to do long term.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's good. But so we'll go on to the next question. Who's your favourite player of all time that's not been on the Bucs? Obviously, there's a lot to choose from, and you have been watching for a long time.
Yeah, there is. Again, it's another one I sort of struggle with. I loved watching The Greatest Show on Turf and Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Marshall Faulk. Those guys were unbelievable as a trio. If I had to pick a trio of players that played together, it would be those three. Because that team was just so much fun to watch, and the cheat code in fantasy football too. Like they were amazing. The Damian Tomlinson for me will always be a notable mention. I remember having a team where I had him and Priest Holmes on the same team, and they absolutely killed it for me. And they were absolutely brilliant. So those two for me as well would be right up there. And then some defensive players. There have been so many good ones. Aaron Donald, for example, was an absolute beast, and someone who just set the gold standard in the NFL as one of the best players ever to do it. But there's been some great quarterbacks too. I mean, obviously Brady, he ended up playing at the Bucs, but phenomenal player to watch, and the way that he operates to that standard and consistency over and over again. And someone like Ben Roethlisberger, who I think is criminally underrated when you talk about quarterbacks that were successful for such a long period of time and the level of success that he brought. I think for me, there's some players. And in today's modern NFL, there's no bigger fan than Josh Allen than me. I think he's for me, he's box office. I watch him every day of the week and twice on Sundays, and he's an exceptional talent and an exceptional player, and he gets me out of my seat every single time. So he's probably of today's lot. If I had to sit and say I could only watch one player, it'd be Josh Allen.
Yeah, he is fun to watch, and he has to do a lot of it himself because they just cannot get wide receivers.
No, absolutely.
And even the tight ends, because obviously Dalton's, he might miss some more time as well. So Dalton Kincaid is just
Dalton Kincaid.
But I think they knew he was injured as well. He wasn't fully fit, but they're just not. Yeah,
they're struggling a little bit there.
I suppose having James Cook as a running back certainly helps too. Like, so between the two of them, they'll probably carry on quite a bit.
Yeah, I think they're going to be set for a couple of years. It's just going to be interesting what they do now. You know, getting rid of Sean McDermott was a controversial decision, but probably the right one if you think about setting the standard of not winning a Super Bowl and not getting to a Super Bowl with the talent and the players they had. Ultimately, if that's the prize and you're not getting there,
well, that's the thing. They're gone past.
Hard to say what's wrong.
They're past the idea of just getting to the playoffs. They get there every year. Their idea is the main prize. And obviously, last year with no Ravens, no Chiefs, no Bengals, you thought, all right, now's the year, and then
and again, but no Super Bowls. Yeah. It's not even just not winning it. If you were getting there and you losing one-off games, it's hard to argue it's a Super Bowl. It's quite tough to win that game. It's conditions, everything can go against you in a one-off game. Like, I think if you were consistently knocking on the door, but they're not making enough AFC Championship games, and they've never made the Super Bowl, and I think that's when you've got to say that enough was enough with the talent that team has, with the quarterback that team has, and it absolutely was the right time for Sean McDermott to go. It'll be interesting to see what they do this year.
Well, definitely, like I say, hopefully they'll get somebody to help Josh Allen anyway. So what do you think? Who do you think the Bucs are going to go? If they've got a first round pick, they will do. So who do you think they're going to go in the first 15. round?
I mean, so the Bucs need an edge. Ultimately, they need an edge. They signed Hassan Reddick last year, paid him a lot of money in a 1-year deal. It didn't work out. The difficulty they have is and obviously we're in an ongoing situation with Reuben Bain, and I don't know when this goes out, but obviously it's been released that Reuben Bain was in an accident that resulted in loss of life, a car accident.
A couple of years ago, was it
2024, but it's come to light now. He was also involved in another traffic incident in 2025, which was sealed for whatever reason, is now out in the public domain, that there were traffic offences that he was cited. We don't know. I'm not sitting here saying that he shouldn't be drafted. I don't know enough of the facts to say where he's going to go. But we have seen situations where news stories that come out this late can lead to somebody falling. If Reuben Bain is there at 15, do the Buccaneers take the risk? My feeling is probably no. Jason Light is known for being a high character guy. That kind of is a trait that he goes with more often than not. Take Antonio Brown aside, which was very much appeasing Tom Brady and letting Tom Brady play a GM for a bit. You look at Buccaneers players, very rarely are they involved in any kind of controversy off the field. Jameis Winston had a little bit, and which the Bucs made him plead guilty to that to get it done. But everybody else, you look at the players, you're not seeing them commit these offences that you're seeing happen with other teams. You're not hearing about DUIs. You're not hearing about all these sort of off the field issues that are happening in other teams and other organizations. For him, he drafts high character guys that might not always work out on the football field, but he's drafting the person first. And it's very rare that you'll get somebody really negative. And I'm not saying Reuben Bain is not a good guy either. I don't know. He was who I wanted, by the way, in January, before it looked like he was going to go 2, 3, 4, 5. I was sold on Reuben Bain. I feel he would be a generational pick for Tampa. It's so many similarities to Warren Sapp. It's kind of unreal that kind of all makes sense. But I don't know if they would take him. If they don't, it's hard to believe that a DE at that position is available that's worth taking. So do they trade down? Do they go best player available? The one thing that with the Bucs is they're not very predictable. Last season, nobody in the world saw them taking Emeka Ibuka in the first round.
Yeah.
They just didn't see it. No one did. No, I don't think I saw a mock draft where that was even discussed. And I didn't see it coming. I don't know anyone that saw it coming. So that's kind of my point. We kind of don't know. It makes sense that they would take a DE. That's kind of what I would want them to do. But it wouldn't shock me if they went and did something absolutely radical. And they took a guy that they just, they absolutely love, that they believe is a game changer for their franchise. And so if that position's at linebacker, if it's a nose tackle, if it's a offensive tackle, offensive line, and also I'm at the point now where I can't question Jason Light. He's knocked so many of these picks out of the park, from Tristan Wirfs to, Vita Vea. I remember Vita Vea was a pick that everybody booed, but everybody loves the guy. You look at the history, Antoine Winfield Jr. in the high second round, Devin White, he won the Super Bowl. I know he didn't sign a new contract, but it was a pretty successful pick. This guy doesn't miss. And then Emeka Ibuka last year came out, absolutely stormed. Graham Barton, the center, another guy that the Bucs absolutely love, who's made a big difference on that offensive line. This team drafts well in the upper rounds. They stay in the league for a long time, if it's not always with the Bucs. So, yeah, I think watch who the Bucs draft, and that will tell you that they've got a really good player, because they don't make a lot of mistakes. But I would love that to be an edge. And depending on the situation with Reuben Bain, if he ended up and wasn't, I don't want to say there's a difference between negligent and liable, right? If it was someone that he did something really stupid and deliberate, and that caused a severe accident, loss of life, then that's something that's got to be taken into consideration. Will we ever know the truth? I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see what happens. This is a live situation. I don't know when this goes out, but ultimately you want to make sure that the due diligence and everything is done. And I don't think the Bucs will probably draft him anyway, given all this controversy, but he's a player I've got a lot of respect for and think he would make a massive difference.
I know Matthew in episode 1, he wanted the Bengals to draft Reuben Bain, but we recorded before it all came out. But I think he would still take him if he could. You know what I mean? Because
and I wouldn't blame a team. Obviously, you got to remember these facts are: he was never criminally charged. He's never gone to a court of his peers. Now, did the university do something funky to make those citations go away? Quite probably. I don't know. Again, it's all conjecture. I don't think we'll ever know the truth. But the fact of the matter is, there's no way that he deliberately went out and sought out to kill this person, and there's no way he did something like Henry Ruggs, where he got completely, he drove at such a ridiculously reckless rate that it was always going to end up that way if something was to happen. So, we're not looking at something that's going to involve him going to jail. At the same point, we can't undermine the fact that there was loss of life and that a family has suffered as a result of a tragic accident or whatever. And so the due diligence needs to be done.
Cool. Yeah. So what's good? Who do you think is going to get the number 1 pick in the draft next year?
Oh, Miami.
Miami.
I mean, Miami are going to be absolutely terrible this year, and do you know what? They kind of need to be. I don't like the Malik Willis signing at all. I know people were really excited about this. We saw him in isolation for a handful of games, and people all of a sudden he's walked to a $60-something million contract. Yeah, there's a reason the guy went in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. Is he's incredibly limited,
and a backup.
And then you've got very little receiving core there. You got very little talent on that roster. Yeah, I mean, I think Vegas have them and Arizona tied at 4.5 wins. I would just literally take the quarterback duel that will happen there and think that. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on Malik Willis being the home run winner there. I mean, I could be wrong, and I very often am, but yeah, I'll go with Miami for me.
Yeah, but it's
a tough season.
He's got nobody else to throw to. I mean, that's the problem.
No.
I mean, you've got Etienne, who's a good running back, but apart from a bit of a waste this year with.
I almost feel like you should just cash in on Etienne. I think you can get a ransom for him now.
That's what Luke said, actually. They should just trade him and get a load of picks from him.
Yeah.
So, when did you first get into fantasy football?
Again, 2000, played in school. First year, got an absolute butt whipping. And then I said, right, I'm coming back for year 2, and I couldn't believe it. And I studied hard and read all the magazines. And this was before, like, there was loads of stuff on the internet, right? You know, I used to go to Borders and Barnes and Noble and used to read all the magazines and buy a load of them and cut them out and just study them and study everything and, you know, try and find an edge. And I've always played the game very differently to everybody else. I always try and pick outlier players. I always go against the grain. You know, I built a team that year that was running back heavy in a year that people weren't drafting running backs. You know, traditionally quarterbacks went really, really early. They tended to dominate the first round. So people were taking your Peyton Mannings and everyone else and all the like. And I think I took Kerry Collins of the Giants in like the 6th round. And he did more than the job for me. He was phenomenal that year. And I kind of pivoted and went in a different direction and built my team around Priest Holmes and LaDainian Tomlinson, who both had really good years. So, yeah, I still remember that one of the first, and kind of set the foundation to how I play fantasy football, which is away from everybody else and picking undervalued assets and trying to drive that into a championship winning team by trying to outwork and outsmart the opposition.
Cool. Well, we are running out of time, but so what I'll do is I'll ask you the question for the next person. You can answer Danny, then I want you to tell me what stuff you do in fantasy football, and you can tell us about your charity event and all that to go and get people to join up. Does that sound good?
Yeah, of course. Well, I can stay on for another 5 minutes. We can rattle through some of these questions you got. So let's rattle through some of these, and then I'll answer the questions and propose one.
Okay. What's the worst player you've ever drafted?
Worst player I've ever drafted? Probably. Who was the Cardinals running back? He was on All or Nothing. I drafted him 1 overall and he got injured.
David Johnson?
David Johnson.
He had a good first year, or he had a good year, one, but
yeah, I took him at 1 overall after he had that good year, and I think he played like 1 game, and that was pretty brutal. So that's probably the worst draft pick I've ever made, easily.
Yeah, I've had a few myself over the years. So, is there any player you tend to draft the most?
No. I'll be honest. I pretty much take the emotional attachment out of it, and yeah, I mean, there's always players I always lean to pick, and when people joke when I lean into players like Kamara and you know, I think last year, like Alvin Kamara, I think like Michael Pittman Jr., they ended up on maybe more of my teams than most because they were criminally undervalued assets, as they were the year before. And I tend to go that way if I think there's a criminally undervalued asset that I can pick up and draft over and over again, then I absolutely will. But I also believe in diversifying the portfolio as well. So I take the emotional attachment out of it. And I sit there and I just try and take players who, you know, I have different strategies for different drafts. I just try and make sure I pick the players that are going to fit the team and the build that I want at the cost that kind of makes the most sense.
Cool, good one. So, do you prefer a Superflex or a 1 QB week?
I prefer a Superflex Titan Premium. There definitely are the more different strategies that can be adopted to make every position relevant is better for me. The more that you have to rely on different outcomes to win, and you move the degree of skill upwards and the degree of luck downwards, is always going to benefit players like myself.
Cool. And do you prefer Dynasty or Redraft?
I'm a redraft guy. I like Dynasty fine and Keeper and all that, but the reason I like redraft is that in-game skill of having to rely on not just drafting but the in-game management week to week and find pathways to victory. I think with Dynasty the issue I have is most leagues tend to fold after 3 or 4 years, and they're not true dynasties. And obviously, if you play in one that's 15 years old and it goes year on year with the same people and the same mechanism, those leagues are absolutely amazing, and hats off to you. But they are very much in that niche 2-3%. Every time you get people dropping out of a league every year, that changes the dynamic and the value of what's been traded, and then that changes the dynamic and value of the league as well. So it's not a true, I don't want to say it's not a true dynasty by replacing owners every single year, but it kind of doesn't have the same feel for probably what it should be if you had the same people in every single year for 10 years.
Fair enough. So obviously next one, what sort of, I know you do work with the fantasy football, so what sort of thing do you do? And you can tell us a bit about the charity, your best ball you run.
Yeah, so obviously if you've never heard of me, then
Why not?
Well, I'm not that egotistical, but I've been doing this a long time. I've been podcasting with my own pod, 5 Yard Rush, for nearly a decade now. Which to do with Danny, who you had on before me. I've had Stocks and other guys. I've write for Fantasy Pros, probably a little less now than I have done previously. But for me, I'm always trying to do something in the space, putting out content. I've written 4 books, which you can find on Amazon, and strategy guides on how to win. I have a Patreon, which I help our players in our Patreon, in our WhatsApp chat to, improve their game. And a lot of those guys have fundamentally improved and challenged in those deeper charity leagues, for example. And then, I run my own charity tournament, the FFCC, which is going into year 8, which is insane in its own right. It's been that long. We've raised, about £50,000 for charity, which is incredible. Over those years, just under that, we're going to hit that this year. But in terms of, it's what's different is it's basically a best ball knockout tournament. So the best thing about fantasy football is the playoffs. I basically bring the playoffs forward. So it's an incredibly difficult tournament to win because it is best ball and it's about a knockout. So there is no league phase. There is a bit of a guillotine to start to kind of set it. But there's 3 layers to the tournament, which is the main event. And if you get knocked out, plate, think like rugby sevens where you have to play in the main event. And then to keep it interesting, I have those that fall out right at the beginning. I have like a squid game, which is like a prompt wheel kind of thing that it's a pass fail, you pass or you fail, and if you fail, you get eliminated. So it's quite a fun dynamic that keeps people in it for a few weeks at least, because I think the first year you got booted out after week 2, and that was it. You were out. You're like, some people's drafts lasted longer than they were in the tournament, and so I've tried to make it so people are in it for a bit longer. But I'm sure Johnny will put the details in. Would love to have everybody in here to play and to donate to raise money for Crohn's and Colitis UK. And it's a charity very close to my heart. I suffer from ulcerative colitis. Over 500,000 of us in the UK suffer from ulcerative colitis. And for most of this demographic of people, it actually affects us the most. Men ages between 25 and 40 are the single biggest likelihood candidates to get this horrible and horrific disease. So, I would absolutely encourage everybody to play and support the great work that Crohn's and Colitis do. I do a lot of work for them. So I'm a big believer in what they do as a charity, and they're phenomenal people.
Oh, you got I think, I don't know how many years I've been in it, but I've been in it a few years. I think last year was the first year I've actually made any progress. But then
you did well last year. But then, you had a good year in all the charity tournaments last year. Like we played a lot. You and I, you went deep in a lot of them last year. You had a really, really good run in quite a lot of tournaments. You and I were in leaderboards for several, and I kept seeing your name above mine in quite a lot. And I was like, right, that Johnny, I've got to go get him at some point. But you had a phenomenal year last year, my friend.
Apart from my own one.
Yeah, but you know what? You've got to be a good host, haven't you? You can't win your own tournament.
No. I did well in the Scottish Bowl this year as well, last year as well. But
you did. You went deep in that, didn't you?
I think the kickers helped me in your one last year, but it was the players that were injured and on IR. I think I had, by the time I got knocked out, I think about a full squad, a full team, and 2 backups in the reserves. I think that's all I had left in my squad by the time it came to that. But no, I enjoy it every year. I expect to get knocked out right away, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
it's a great tournament. It's a lot of fun.
So what sort of question would you like to ask the next person on the show? So that'll be later on.
The next question I'd like to ask is, do you have any fantasy draft day rituals? So I want to know, like, if you're doing like a live draft and you host it, what do you do? Do you roll out the red carpet? Do you have any traditions? Do you have an outfit that you wear? Or in your big home league draft, if you have one, what do you do to rile people up? Like, I want to know, like, everything about people's home league or league of record or whatever is like important. So draft rituals, draft wind-ups, what are some stories that people have done? Whoever's answering this question, like for me, I think those are really cool things. So like trophies or whatever, just anything about your league of record that makes it special, that you participate in and make it feel special.
Oh, that's a good question. That one. I may actually sneak that with the questions for other people later on as well.
Do it, yeah. Let's get as many as possible. One. Like, I think it's an awesome thing to do.
Well, because our home league, we always draft the night of kickoff. And a couple of years we've done it live. We've done a YouTube channel showing the draft. I always wear my black fantasy football commissioner T-shirt.
Yeah. And
then after that, I'll probably watch, like, before the proper draft. I can't help it. It's not the best one. I always watch Draft Day. I just have to watch it. You know what I mean? It's easy to watch, but yeah. So for Danny's question, obviously I couldn't find the recording properly, but it was a longer question. But basically, it comes down to how many trophies will Arsenal win this year? Because obviously you were going to get the quadruple.
I mean, he's an Everton fan who. When was the last time Everton last won something in the 1995 FA Cup final? So I feel like it's perfectly succinct of culture of football that a fan who hasn't seen this team win for 30 years is asking me how many trophies we're going to win this year. I never thought we'd win the Control Pro. I didn't think it was even possible that we would win it. I think we win. I think we win one trophy. I think we win something, and I still think, if we get a result up at City this week, then the league's in our hands. And, I'm looking at the pathway of the Champions League thinking that is possible. I think we'll probably win one. If you'd offered me the league at the start, I absolutely would have taken it, and only that. Yes, it's got a bit sticky. I was there on Saturday. I watched that defeat in person, then had to suffer all the trains being cancelled and the 6.5 hour journey home. So, it was painful enough. But yeah, but that sums up football, that a guy who hasn't watched his team win a trophy in 30 years decides to throw that sort of question. It shows you the semantics of everybody wanting Arsenal to fail, which is great, because I think it's absolutely great that fans have embraced cheating and oil barring financial impropriety as acceptable, because a few Arsenal fans are quite annoying, who I don't even think are fans, who I think are also big a-holes. So, all power to you if that's the way you want to be, but that's football. That's why I like the NFL, is because you don't have these silly monocules of fans being fed bottles to make great viral content and crap media coverage. It's about the sport and the camaraderie of it, and that's really what it should be about.
But it's the same when it comes to football. If you're doing well, teams are going to hate you. Doesn't matter what team you are. So
listen, I don't care. Danny's a friend of mine. I'm jesting about a lot of this. He'll listen to this and he knows that I'm joking. I have a lot of time for Everton Football Club. I think they're a good team, and I don't actually hate any real football team. I think for me, I think what's different, I think what people like about the NFL is it feels more of a community. It's more camaraderie. It doesn't have that sort of negative tribalism that perhaps the round ball does. And I think it's the way it's covered, I think, is the biggest problem in this country, that it's about headlines and clicks than it is about actual content and educating an audience. And I think that's kind of where I haven't fallen out of love of the game, because I haven't and I never will. But I think fans are being dealt a disservice by paying loads of money to Sky TV to listen to absolute nonsense and dribble by people who are making clickbait, statements without following it up with any kind of educational facts. And you got, media outlets getting community noted for incorrect information. It's just stupid. You don't really get as much of that in the NFL. You get the idiots like Skip Bayless for sure, and Colin Coward.
Yeah, but you don't really listen to them, right?
Exactly that. Everyone knows they're a joke. That's kind of the difference. But yeah.
Cool.
But no, that's it.
Okay, good stuff. Well, thank you for coming on, and good
Thank you
luck
for
this
having me.
season. I'll be looking forward to seeing how you draft.
Probably terribly, but at least this land just in it for vibes and a good crack, right? So feel free to hit me up. You're in the WhatsApp chat, so I try to be as active as I can. Just drop me a message and feel free to do whatever. Troll me, don't troll me, I don't care. But like, let's just have a laugh. Let's keep it all good vibes and have a bit of a laugh while we do it.
Oh, definitely. See many more different chats I'll have to make up before the season starts.
the Murf roasting chat for sure, I think, is going to be coming.
Yeah, well, yeah, you do something to wake up and you just pick violence in the chat and let everybody wind everybody up. But good luck this season and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, pal.
Thanks.